We are on the second afternoon break in the questioning of Paul Condon at the undercover policing inquiry. Paul Condon was the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police between 1993 and 2000. I think it's fair to say he's not happy. He is getting increasingly annoyed about the questioning, which a lot of which refers to Home Office minutes of meetings he had with the Home Secretary, where he feels the recorded things that he said both misrepresent the tone and the tenor of what he was saying, if not the content, which he has trouble contradicting. We've also seen some reports which has shown that he was shown, which he's definitely sure he was never shown. We were told 4 times that a police constable is the lowest rank in the Metropolitan Police, and that a report written by a constable had no business being in front of his eyes. I'm joined by Zoe Young of the Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance. What are you made of what Paul Condon's had to say?
Oh, God. I mean, I'm sure that when you're in such a senior position, you're not supposed to keep blaming your underlings for everything. I mean, it come again and again. He just repeats. He goes on loops with various things. One of them being, well, this was just an inspector or a sergeant or something. And I'm not being elitist. He keeps saying, I'm not being elitist, because clearly every time he does it, there's a bit of a, oh, God, again, from the public gallery. So I think he's sort of beginning to feel a bit guilty about it, or at least realizing it's not coming across very well to keep putting off responsibility for these reports to people who he was overseeing.
He's taken issue with the Counsel of the Inquiry, David Barr KC, complaining.
It's also beneath him on some level. Clearly,
clearly, it would appear. He's second guessing what Barr is going to ask him. Constantly
cutting him, not letting him ask the questions, defending himself against things that aren't coming or just aren't even the point or aren't there. So that it's just wasting so much time. Perhaps that's the point.
It does feel like filibuster. As has been the case for the majority of the day, he uses each opportunity of answering a question to speak at great length about matters which are only tangentially kind of connected to what the question was about. I have to say, I feel quite browbeaten by the sound of his voice, because he is there's been so much repetition, because for some reason he name checks a huge number of people, whether they are people who are relevant to what the question is, or just people who were employed in some manner that was close to what's been talked about. And each time he mentions somebody, he gives a little potted biography of what they did and what they went on to do. He has extensive notes in front of him, which he refers to on a regular basis. In some cases, it feels like he is reading out pre-prepared monologues on
several times. He's come round to the same things, like 3, even 4 times sometimes. It just feels really, really disrespectful to us in the public gallery, but to David Barr and thereby to the judge, whose representative he is. And part of me is wondering, is he thinking, oh, this inquiry isn't long for this world now, I can start being dismissive and disrespectful? Because I mean, there have been some really disrespectful witnesses before, but this one, he kind of takes the biscuit. I think it's particularly because of the seniority of his position, because of who he is, who he was, the fact that he has such a contempt for a legal instrument, a state legal instrument that's is empowered by legislation to compel him to give evidence. You get the impression he's not happy about that, and he's going to use the opportunity to make some points that he wants to make, and he's damned if he's going to be forced into answering the direct questions. He looks really angry.
Yes, he does.
I mean, just look at the video on the YouTube. He's just there like the whole time, kind of glaring, and sometimes it gets a bit more. And then...
But we occasionally with his head down so that he can read his notes. I mean, he's been like it all day. I mean, I think he started off fairly kind of engaging with the process as it should be, but this afternoon it's been
we're just all sitting there going, what? Again? How many more people can you insult and demean to justify? Can you not just ask? I mean, we all know he's banked rights to a degree, he oversaw this unit, which was committing all these abuses. He started off the day saying, oh, well, we now know that this was not good. And I raised all these issues from the beginning, during my thing, and all these great things that we did to stop all the rape and murder and things, whatever. but he didn't do anything about that unit. And that's basically all the filibuster, all the bluff. He can't get away from that. And it seems like he's trying to kind of derail in all directions to get away from it.
We were taken to the report, the briefing note by Bob Lambert about the meeting between HN81, cover name Dave Hagan, and Richard Walton of the Stephen Lawrence review team. Again, this was something which Paul Condon dismissed as being very junior officers.
Junior.
So,
nothing to do with me.
He rejected some of the assertions in the report that the Home Office and the Prime Minister were deeply concerned about the Stephen Lawrence, the fallout from it, that it could lead to disorder and riot. He claims that the only time he was most concerned was in the lead up to the October the 6th, 1993 march against the BNP HQ in Welling, and that it never tipped over that point after that point. Which, I mean, I have to say, if that's the case, if that's what the Commissioner felt for the entirety of the time in the 90s, after Stephen Lawrence's murder, if that's the only time he was concerned, then quite frankly, the majority of special branch reporting on this topic was way off the mark.
Seriously.
And it really felt like he clearly had no handle. I mean, if he is to be believed, then he had no handle whatsoever on the priorities of special branch and what they were actually doing in any sense. We talked a lot about the STS being a small unit and it not being that significant to the Commissioner, but we've also heard repeatedly that special branch at large, which was quite big, let's be honest, over 600 officers, and considered to be an elite, that the special branch was of a large significance to the Commissioner. We even heard this morning from Paul Condon that when he was staff member to a previous Commissioner, that special branch officers were able to bypass him as the staff officer and speak directly to the Commissioner, brief him directly without him being aware of what was being said. So the idea that the special branch was somehow, following a different set of priorities to the ones that he was holding doesn't ring true. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and suggests that he is in fact not being entirely truthful with this inquiry when he talks about the priorities that he was interested in. And certainly, I mean, we saw that with the disconnect between what he's saying. I mean, he said at one point that that there's a jarring juxtaposition by what he felt were his ambitions and feelings at the time with what is recorded in the Home Office notes of the private meetings he was having with the Home Secretary. Now, I mean, I'm of the belief that the contemporaneous notes of a civil servant, who I doubt had that much of an axe to grind, about meetings between the chief of the Commissioner of the Met Police and the Home Secretary are likely to be more truthful than the memories of the Commissioner, 30 years later.
I mean, who knows? Having been in government, I can say that minutes are not always entirely accurate. However, I mean, we don't know that there's any extra grind. We have no reason to believe that. We do have reason to believe that this guy is trying to cover up.
I mean, he repeatedly has demanded that the author of these notes, which would have been, would not have been the material person in the meeting, but the person who just takes the notes, should be called to the inquiry. And why have they not be called? I mean, it's just as if that, that's the. I mean, it just seems ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I think it's a good point. I mean, they should be called. But as David Barr said, that's something that should be put in writing by your lawyers as part of the process of developing the inquiry and who's called. I
mean, but really, though, that the civil servant who drafted some minutes between the Home Secretary and I can understand what the Home Secretary. I believe the Home Secretary should be called.
I believe, I absolutely agree, and I believe that a lot of secretarial people. I think the cleaners should be called. The people who saw what was chucked up and chucked away. I think we maybe need to go back in.
I probably do. It's only a short break. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody who's listening.